Hey guys, welcome to my new series of interviews and studio visits with artists. And today we're here with Lorenzo Tonda, who is also one of my teachers at the Academy. So hi Lorenzo, and thank you for your time with me.
Hi everyone.
I would start with asking a little bit about you, about your background, your education. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I did art studies here in Florence. I'm from Florence. I was born here in Fiesole on the hills, and I spent mostly of my childhood inside of the countryside. I consider it part of my education. Then I did a high school of art here in Florence. And then I studied in the Academy of Fine Art. Before that, I did also 1 year of dance in Bologna. And that was my year that I understood that I didn't want to study theoretical stuff because I'm mostly practical person. And I decided to jump in the most strange work that is becoming an artist, I didn't have a problem with my family, so everyone said, okay, do whatever you want. I was free to choose whatever I want.
You said you studied art in high school, but before that, did you draw?
I was into drawing a lot, but also doing stuff with the hands. I like to manipulate things.
And you already painted at that time, or you started painting in high school?
I started painting in high school, but with the intention to do it at the age of 18.
You said that you studied your whole life basically in Florence. And how much would you say Florence has influenced you? Do you think that you get a lot from Florentine tradition in your paintings, in your art? And how?
It's strange because it's a process of understanding my place. That is something that you don't understand when you leave it in the childhood or in the adolescence. But then when you start to understand it, it becomes something really powerful. You go deep inside of the culture that shaped the place. That is not our culture actually, but is the culture of many cycles ago. The city is like that because of the men who lived in those periods in the city. So discovering the city put you in contact also with them, the people of that age. That I consider is the golden period of the figurative art. So I'm lucky to be here, was born here, but of course I was shaped by the city. You have something that you dai per scontato, how to say.
Yeah, you give it for granted.
Yeah, like sitting in a square that is designed by Brunelleschi. And when you understand it and the values behind of that, you say, I mean, really one of the most important places for my culture. So I work for creating a bridge with that culture and our culture today. So because it will be interesting to try to recreate at least 1% of that intention. There is an Italian historian that is super interesting. It's called Maurizio Bettini. He's a classicist. He always says we have to approach the classic culture with the respect that we give by approaching another culture. You have to really be open also to understand and not judge their culture. Don't project ourselves to that periods, as we should not project ourselves in other cultures, so we can understand more with that view, understanding what it's important in the other culture that we want to absorb. We can find really a lot of connection and force ourselves to understand what we have lost.
Is there a painter, an artist from the past that inspires you in particular?
Depend, but many. Too many to just say
You don't
one.
have a favorite one?
No, it depends of the period of my life.
Right now you have one?
Of course, Pontormo is one of my favorite for many reasons. Raphael, and maybe we can say also Beato Angelico, because Beato Angelico is a really particular painter. He was trying in the Renaissance period to create a bridge with the medieval paintings. They tried to apply all the revolution stuff of the Renaissance inside of a philosophical perspective of the Middle Ages. But of course, there is also many other artists. But yeah, we can say these three.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned Florence, how it influenced you. You mentioned these three artists. While in the contemporary world, like throughout your education, has there been a person or some people that inspired you, like some mentors that really shaped the artist you are right now? Would you?
Of course, there are two persons, we can say. The first one was my teacher in the Academy of Fine Art, Saverio Vinciguerra, a really hard person, straight, but with some really interesting ideas about art and public art.
What was he teaching?
Painting at Fresco. And public project for spaces. And that was my first approach on a view of art that is more connected with my view. What I discovered is my view, because my view is really practical. Why we do art. With him, I discovered that art it's part of the public space. If we think about Italian art, it's public art. It's art made for maybe private commissions, public commission, but for public spaces. So the churches were public spaces. It was like pop culture at that time. So I understood that with him and with his help, with also working many projects around mostly Tuscany, but also we went to Bulgaria doing a fresco inside of a monastery. It was a nice experience inside of the Orthodoxian world. And the second one, of course, Nicola Verlato, another teacher of Academy. I worked with him. I worked and studied. I spent almost 2 years in Rome in his studio. And so that was like a super chance to understand even more deeply my tradition, the Florentine tradition. So in Rome, I had this beautiful experience to working through the city with him, visiting specific places, churches, of course Caravaggio, of course all the museum, the sculpture. I understood a lot about this combination with sculpture, architecture and painting with him. Even music, why not? And that was another age in my mind of that experience that was connected with the history of art, because the Florentine art itself, like Brunelleschi, Masaccio, Donatello, used to go in their period in Rome to discover the antiquity and the classicism. No?
So you felt it was the same
I felt I was there with him, working around the city with his mentorship. I understood a lot. So yes, Nicola was like the second one.
Amazing. And yeah, I was wondering if you could show us a little bit around your studio, what you're working on, a little bit about your work and so on. Let's go and see. Okay, so we were saying that this is the painting you're working on right now. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the subjects, the topic you talk about in your paintings, but also maybe the technique. So feel free to tell me whatever you...
Yeah, this is one of the two paintings I'm working on here. I have to finish it in this month. It's for a collective exhibition in Copenhagen with the Pulsen Gallery. It's a subject that I already used. It's the Minotaur. I already painted for another exhibition because, sometimes some paintings are connected with other paintings, so it's difficult to explain one painting without the others and without the background. Sometimes it's just a process of ideas. It's an ambiguous scene, of course, because the first step, you could interpret it as a rape, we can say, of middle man and middle beast on a girl. But you take your time and you start to question what is representing you. You can have some doubt about that because it's also a kind act of love of the beast that is trying to carry this woman under the blanket. She's also, we can say, relaxed. It's not in the world of dreams. In many paintings I like this ambiguity. I like when images open many realities inside of it, and all of them are sort of way connected. It's like the multiverse, multiple universes inside of an image. So it depends how it goes on, but it doesn't move. So it's like freezing the multiplicity of the realities. Of course, what I like more is the compositional idea that it's really classical, where these two figures are combined. She's looking like a fish, not like a siren, because of the position of the 2 feet. And these like 2 arches, I like the way they combined themselves. Then I decided to put them into this stand because it's a quote by Piero della Francesca, the dream of Costantino, il sogno di Costantino. I liked the way he represented this like a simple minimalistic tent. It gives something monumental, no? And then I decided to put in her a face of an Asian woman because I like to quote a little bit this typical tradition of Japanese prints of the shunga, the erotic representation of the 19th centuries, where sometimes you can find animals and human beings having affair together. No? So I like to bring this, you can say, classical scene in connection with the Eastern world.
And you mentioned animals. I know that the theme is probably really different, but there is something you're working on there, right?
Yeah. We talked about the public art, and this that is just a design, it's a project now. It's a project for a wall that is in a park of Florence, of Cascine Park, where there was a zoo from the 50s, I think, until the 80s. It was a typical place in Florence that many people of that generation remembered. But now that specific garden is completely empty. There is nothing, nobody knows about that garden. The story, it's based on the real facts, because that specific zoo was destroyed by flood of the 66, the famous flood of Florence. The zoo was destroyed, all the animals died in the flood. So I represented the mud of the flood coming from left with all the dead animals, and a group of artists and archaeologists trying to bringing back to life in a sculptural way, we can say, because they are trying to restore it physically, like if they were toys, sculpture, we can say, and painting them again, no? So in this act of restoration of the life of the animals, and of course the biggest part is in the central, where this camel that was the main character of the zoo at that time, it's like a sculpture in clay. They're building it. You can say that the head is going to be attached to the body, assembling pieces of the big camel. Until when, at a certain point, they become alive and they jump out of the scene. Of course, there is the flying ship, because it represents also the violence, we can say, of the natural world that can create some disease to the people who tried to bring it back to life. No? Everything is inserted in this architecture that is a quote of Brunelleschi. It's similar to the architecture I used in Mural I already done in San Jacopino. I used many elements like the frames from Luca della Robbia. There are some quotes about the masters.
This reminds me of another work that you did that's on the other room, right? Can we go and see it? Is this work here, right?
Yeah, this is one of the 3 work I made quoting the frame of Luca della Robbia. Together, I think, with Brunelleschi invented a technique of invetriatura, a process to
glassify
the ceramic, to protect them. This is made by ceramic plaster, so there is a part of ceramic in it, but it's plaster. For doing that, I made the 3D model in my PC,
which is that
computer,
one, right?
And then I printed it with my 3D printer. And so this is like the model of the frame in the real size. I printed each of this part and then glue it together. And we casted with a friend, a sculpture friend, Enrico Ferrarini, that is a great sculptor from Modena. We made the cast, the mold, and then we made the positive in gesso ceramico. If you look it from far, and in a specific situation, maybe with a background, a different color, you could see that there is like a chromatic synthesis of a sphere with the 3 graduation of the blue and the black behind. No? This tonal graduation of these 3 colors from far gives you the impression of something that is going back of the white frame. No? It was imagining a huge sphere si affaccia on the frame. Like this is like a hole. And behind of this, there is a huge sphere with a hole itself. The work of Luca della Robbia suggested me the idea of the artwork. So the idea was make this imaginary sphere a representation of a maternal uterus. There is the sphere that is blue outside. Inside is gold, and inside it's floating this baby that is in the moment of being taken out from the belly of the mother. So it's a representation from the internal point of view. I like the idea of this baby that was traumatized from his birth.
And I see another work that you told me you're still working on this, right?
Yeah, like the other one, I'm still working on this one. This is a commission from a friend. She's Ukrainian. This is a commission based on her necessity to represent the resistance of the Ukrainian people during the war. I was working on this subject of the wind, also for other paintings I made for a personal exhibition I had last September in Copenhagen. And I liked to play with this representation of the wind. I worked mostly with the dress of the woman, typical dress of Ukrainian woman, traditional, I liked the decorations and the shape of the dress, and I used it to shape this like tent that gives you a sense of protection and also a shield for the other two characters. This woman, she protects the other two. One of them is dying. The center where clothes create this sort of circle, there is like this baby with the lancia, with the trident of the Ukrainian military army. And then, of course, I used a tree to give the sense of the roots of the culture in their own land. That is why we always fight, because of preserving the roots of our life. So it's a painting that is connected with many paintings I did 1 year ago. The same situation, the same minimal like ground situation, the same subject of the wind, but applied for a commission, for something that is felt from someone. So that is something I like, to do something together with someone else. It's why I like public art.
And you're talking about public art. Maybe we can go and see your mural.
Of course.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. Okay, so now we are here at the murales that Lorenzo did. So, Lore, tell us a little bit how long it took you, the technique that you used here, how different it is from painting in oil or in a fresco, for example.
This painting was made a kind of new technique. It's made by silicates. It's a super valid alternative of the fresco painting, because the fresco painting has many limits, we can say, in outside, because of the rain, should be protected more. But those kind of colors are more durable, let's say. So we made all the plaster all together in one session, and then we transferred all the project with the technique of cartoni, and then we started to paint it.
As a technique, is it more similar to acrylic?
Yeah, the way you approach it is more similar to acrylic. But the difficult part of this technique that when it dries, it becomes lighter. You need some days to understand transformation of the tones, because when you put a color, you don't know if it's the right color. It's a synthetic way of painting. You don't blend. It's the kind of technique you don't blend. So yes, it's more similar to acrylic. It's more similar to drawing at the end. It's more similar to drawing. You see, all the etching, all the volumes, all the lines. I don't know. You find all the solutions through the brush strokes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the theme?
Yes, the theme is based on the story of the place. Before the garden, there was a factory that during the 80s was moved away. And they left this place unused. The people of the neighborhood, that is a popular neighborhood, it's the neighborhood with less trees, and because it was part of the urban speculation of that period. So the people of the period during the 60s, but mostly of the 80s, asked to the city to change the destination of this free space into a garden, into a school. The city built the garden and also the school. The theme is like the place of the party, a place where you enjoy staying together, because one of the main activity they used to make this garden, there was this meal together with every different cultural population of the neighborhood, because it's a popular neighborhood, so there are a lot of foreigners. This event that was called Mangia Come Parli. So families were sharing one day, one meal together, bringing all their own food, no? So we started from this concept to elaborate the scene. So people eat together, they make their own activity and parties. So insert into this space delimited by columns. And that is one of the part I like more of this painting, the columns, because it creates the rhythm and the harmony of the frieze. From far, you see the columns that unify the scene. There are figures that are throwing the object in the opposite direction. They are little sculpture made by kids during the works, because there were a lot of kids. We gave them the duty of creating little sculpture that we scanned in 3D and we put inside of
That's
the
interesting.
painting. And that was an idea that came out leaving the space, because before they were just stones in the project, but the stones were like a meaningful things, you know. So if you shape the stones, become a sculpture, and the sculpture has its own meaning, of course.
Especially if they were created in that moment by the
course.
children. Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you.
Okay guys, here we are back in the studio for the last part of the interview, and a few interesting questions I hope for Lorenzo. So Lore, told us about your biggest satisfaction so far that you had in the artistic world.
The biggest is, without any doubts, the mural painting I made here in Florence, because it gave me the possibility to try to apply a certain way to design the paintings and art through the digital technology, the 3D programs, and all this word that is used in architecture and in all this applied art. And of course, doing something for the city, for my city, that is something for me important, because it shows in terms of production of art. There is hope to try to recreate something similar to what we made 500 years ago, now with different technologies and in different situations. We try to bring something of the city center outside of the city center to try to connect, creating this bridge. Those reasons are the real reason, from my point of view, of to represent some local narratives, we can say.
So that's also why you want so much to do the one that you showed us before, right?
Yeah, that will be the second one. The social background, the architectonical background is almost the same. So yes, that will be the same goal for me.
And what is stopping you right now? Investments? So you're looking for someone who could actually support that kind of...
Yeah, because of course the city can do it, but you know, when you work with the public, you have to always be like in a group of work. For example, you need some no-profit association, some association that cares about the place, because of course it's something democratic. It's not just about you want to do something for but the community requests it. So you need to find someone that are interested in that specific process.
And my next question actually would have been like, what is your biggest dream that you have right now for your career, for your
what
art?
I said, to become able to work more in this kind of dimension. So everything that is connected with places, but out of the abstraction of the studio artist.
Because right now you're working with galleries in general, right? Where can we find your works? Which galleries, if you want to mention?
Pulsen Gallery in Copenhagen has some of my works there.
Also something in Italy?
There are a collection in Bassano del Grappa that has some of my paintings there. There's the Bank collection, mostly in Copenhagen. Yeah.
And you have an exhibition with them soon?
We will, as a gallery, a group show in August.
And talking about galleries, is there any advice that you would give to someone approaching galleries for the first time? How did you approach galleries first, and which advice in general would you give to artists?
It depends. There are not rules. All of them are private activities, so everyone take care of their own activity in their own way. For example, the gallery in Copenhagen, how do you enter in the gallery? You try to do an exhibition with an established artist of the gallery. They try if your work can have a market, and so you become a part of the gallery.
And that's what happened with you?
This is happening with me. We made a double show, me and Nicola Verlato. So that work, we sold some paintings. So we started the collaboration, and then we did the solo show in September. That was my way of approaching galleries, through a friend, Nicola Verlato, appunto. In other situations, some galleries contacted me on Instagram. So Instagram, of course, it's a super good tool to have to show your own portfolio. Otherwise, you have to be present in the art scene, let's see, especially I think in Italy.
What do you mean you have to be present in the art
present scene? To make relationships with other artists, with the gallerists, with the curators, all this. You go to fairs. No, so there is a system. If you want to enter into a system, you have to approach it and be present.
Have a network.
But it depends of each gallery.
Okay. And maybe we can get to the last question of our interview. If you could give an advice to people who want to switch their life to an artistic life, to make art their own career, without having had a formal education as you had. I don't know if you know anyone who made it, but like if you have any particular advice on that at all.
Painting in a classical figurative way, there is some works to do. There are no easy way, I think.
No shortcuts.
No shortcuts. But I mean, in the market, there are no rules. So if someone recognizes that your limits are something that can be valorized, you can enter. You can have a easy access to the market. Also, if you are not completed in terms of preparation, you have to study a lot what there is around you. I think everything is possible if someone wants it and spend all of its energy in that way. Of course, we have to recognize our limits and do what we can do and not just what we want to do. That's the hard thing. Understanding what you are able to do and, of course, trying to push it always a little bit more.
No, I really love this advice, right? Recognizing our limits and trying to make the best with what we have, but also work hard. This is what you're saying.
No. To arrive at a certain point, you really have to forget, at least for some years, that you are a person that has his comfort, his necessity, and you have to find a compromise within the lifestyle you have to give all this energy, also in terms of money, to your goal. This is the only way. This is one phrase that my teacher from the Academy of Fine Art, Vinci Guerra, said to me that is impressed in my mind. Bisogna frequentare sempre persone migliori di noi.
Oh, I love that.
So you have to stay with people that are better than you to get whatever you can from their life. It's what happened with me many times with many people. And I a bit suffer when it's not like that, when I feel that I am too much stuck in my comfort zone, let's say. We need also comfort zone. But we
need a balance with that.
Yes, we have always a balance. It's really Renaissance style is the balance. I really like the concept of balancing. So yes, that is a general advice, but it's what allowed me to get in contact also with Nicola Verlato, for example.
That was a great advice, a great way to close this interview. And that's why I also really appreciate the time you spend with us. So thank you very much, Lorenzo, for everything. Thank you guys for watching.